Yep, it's Curly, and I've got here my Wilista deck, and we're just gonna go ahead and just play a few test stands here real quickly, just to see what that's like. I've got the Wilista sleeves, the old Wilista sleeves, Pragmatic Wilista I think it is, and then I got the like Milfy. I always find that really hard to say because I end up just saying MILF, but the cute animals from Yu-Gi-Oh! As our ride deck sleeves. We're going to throw out the starter here and go ahead and shuffle our deck. There we go. Let's go ahead and draw our 5 cards here. So right at the top, this is a pretty decent starting hand. Naturally, we'll put back the triggers in most situations, unless we really need the shield value. But I think we'll be okay, because we've kind of got everything that we need here. We'll just get about the perfect hand for the most part. There we go. Now we're shuffled, let's go ahead and stand up the Vanguard. Let's say we'll go first. Let's just draw one here. I think we'll discard the pretty obvious discard target there. Soul Blast not to go into grade 3 Wilista, if only. Soul Blast out, and then put this on the bottom of the deck to draw one more card. Very good to see. Let's say we take 1 damage here. It's going to be another Romania. Sucks, and let's go ahead and draw 1 card. Now, here is kind of where we sometimes run into issues. It's turn 2. We want to ride into our grade 2 Wilista here, but we have to do 2 things. 1, we have to discard for ride to then ride into the grade 2. Then, pretty much 90% of the time, we want to use the skill here of the grade 1 Wilista to put a card from our hand into soul to search out another one of these orders. So we can go ahead and use that. But it is just such a difficult decision that I don't really know what it is that I want to discard. So we're just going to do a couple of little exercises here and see how that plays out. So this is our hand here, and let's say for sake of argument we're playing against a Gandiva, right? So that gives us a little bit more frame of reference of, you know, how we want to handle this. Ideally, we do not want to discard these 4 cards here, right? Especially if we're going up against a Gandiva. We want to try and keep these. We definitely want to keep the Persona Ride to try and close out the game. We want to keep the Elvira to draw. We want to keep the gem because you want to have 2 gems in rotation, 1 in soul, 1 in your hand, so you can activate them and get the full effect. And of course, PGs are nice, especially against Gandiva. So that leaves us with these 3 cards. We have to choose 2 of them to essentially discard, but we're going to be able to draw 2 cards, so it is going to be an even exchange after everything. We do have some pretty decent shield value here, in terms of us having the heal and the front, so we're pretty solid. Gandiva doesn't really do much in the early games, so we don't need that much shield value. The Romania here is pretty vital to Wilista's early game plan because she can go ahead and swing in for 20k, 28k if you have a booster. However, in this thought experiments, this test hand, we're playing against Gandiva, which means this will eventually get retired and we have no Yuika to bounce it back. All we've seen so far is that one of these has gone to damage, which leaves that there is 2 left in deck, so chances of getting another one are kind of difficult, but getting a Yuika, maybe not so much. So, we have a couple of different options here. If we were going second, we can actually put in the Wilista into soul, and then on our first grade 3 turn, we can actually immediately have 5 attacks, which lets us close out the game earlier, especially considering that we have the ability to rush here. But we're going first in this situation, so that's not really a good idea. What we'll do here is let's go ahead and discard the heal trigger here and actually ride into the grade 2 Wilista. Then we have the skill of the grade 1 here from the ride line, which is actually not when you ride over a Wilista specifically, it's just whenever you ride over it. So that's why I've actually used this in Medial a couple of times. Then we need to discard something here. And out of all of these, I think I'm actually going to discard the Elvira or rather put the Elvira into Soul, I should say, to search our deck and try and find the gem card there. The reason for this being that I want to use the Romania to try and rush here. I want to use this front trigger here to try and stay low on damage early on in the game, so later on I can sponge some hits. And I want to keep the PG to try and block the Vanguard Gandiva, which is going to swing with a crit. Persona riding is nice, and of course we need a gem for next turn, right? So that is what will go there. Let me know in the comments what you would do. And then we can just progress our turn as normal. Play that into Soul, we draw 1, and then it lets us draw again thanks to this. And we're basically in a great spot here, because now we can throw this down, rush down our opponent, check this for next turn. So I think that was an okay exchange here. Let's say we take it instead of guarding it, and then we draw for turn and discard, and we get ourselves an Elvira again. So that worked out just fine. But let's try that again. Let's go ahead and draw for turn here. We got ourselves a okay starting hand. I was gonna say let's this time not go up against Gandiva, basically something that's not control based, so we can keep some of these cards here. It's actually not a horrible hand, you can use a lot of these cards, but I think we'll put back the PG, and since it's not a control matchup, I guess we'll put back the Eureka and keep everything else to draw back into Eureka, and then an Ophelia. Pretty sure I probably would have put back another Elvira here, but let's say for the sake of argument, we're actually going to be going second here, so we'll draw here. We're going to discard the Ophelia because she's, you know, not super useful in the early games here. We're going to ride and then draw 1. Very nice to have that. We can go ahead and be pretty aggressive here. I like to do 1 and 1 instead of just throwing out double Elvira, so you don't know that I have double, and they can't try and target them both or anything like that. So we can go ahead and swing, swing, and then swing. Let our opponent pass turn. Let's say they don't swing into our rears, and we'll take the 1 damage. And we'll stand here and draw. Manage to hit into a gem, which is really nice. But this here is our hand. Right. We got ourselves a pretty decent hand. So once again, we're in that situation where we want to ride into this grade 2 Wilista. We have to discard and then ideally put something into Soul. Because even though we have 1 gem, we want to have 1 for next turn, as well as use 1 this turn and have 1 in Soul. So let's say you're playing something that's not control based. You can pick whatever deck you want from the top of your head. You're playing Wilista, your opponent's playing something else. What would you discard here? And then what would you put into Soul with the grade 1's skill? So I think it'll make sense to discard this here, then ride into the grade 2. You can do this in whatever order you'd like. I think technically the best order to do this is to Soul Blast and use this skill first, because this will go to bottom of the deck. After you search, you shuffle, so there's a chance you can draw into it again next turn and discard and draw 1. You also have at that point the most amount of gems in your deck, so there's a chance you can draw into another gem, which may or may not be a good thing. In this case, maybe not, because I already have 1, so I have 3 gems, 2 at the end of the turn. So I can go either way there. Next, now we have here, this hand here, right? What can we do here? If we want to use the skill of our grade 1, what can we put into Soul? I feel like this one's a pretty easy one. I think we'll take the Eureka and put that into Soul in order to search for our order. We already have a Eureka. I said this is a non-control based matchup, so presumably that'll stay on field. We don't need that many of her unless we're in a control based matchup. PG and the order are nice to have. We can rush down our opponent with the Romania, so that kind of just leaves these 2. Getting the Elvira to draw would be great, and using this to guard would be great. So that kind of just leaves the Eureka to go into Soul. So we can go ahead and search out from our deck the Crossing Illumerays here, and immediately activate it in order to draw 1 and then 2. So That worked out pretty well because we got ourselves back the Ophelia we discarded and the Eureka that we put into Soul. And, you know, this turn we can go ahead and beat down our opponent, and hopefully next turn be in a pretty good spot as we do have our Gem and our Virus, Ophelias, and Romania. Let's try that one more time. Alright, so let's go ahead and start a new game here. Let's say this time we'll go first, and we're actually going to be facing off against a mirror. So this is against a fellow Wilista. And this is our starting hand pre-mulligan here. I think ideally we just want to get rid of all of these triggers for the most part. You can try and keep, let's say, maybe the critical or the heal trigger. Definitely want to put back the over trigger, but you can maybe keep back one of these triggers just to use it to guard in case they do get their own Romania to rush you down with. But in this case, I'm going to be extra risky and put those back, as we're going to draw back into a set of triggers anyways. Alright, so we are going first here, so we'll go ahead and draw, and I think we'll just go with the usual. We have a pretty nice defensive hand here, so we'll just discard and go into the grade 1 Wilista immediately. Soul Blast. I actually only play 3 of these, by the way, so I don't play max copies, so it's kind of funny that we keep getting it for this thought exercise. And we're going first, so we'll pass turn here. Depending on how things go, considering we have so much shield value, we can guard here. We might be getting rushed, so it kind of depends on what they opened. Let's say they're going to go ahead and try and rush. We're going to take the first hit, try and get a defensive, which we don't. And try and stop the assault here, and then we'll guard the next attack, and maybe get hit yet again. So we should have just taken that attack, to be honest, because the trigger could have shut them off. We're going to draw here into another critical trigger, which is a bit unfortunate. But here we are, back in this situation where we have this in hand. We're going first this time. Against a Wilista. They already have, let's say, an Elvira. Let's say they have double Elvira on their side that they're trying to rush you down with, or they did rush you down with. And now you have to discard for Ride, and then also somehow get a Gem. We finally opened not Gem. So now we have to somehow get that in Soul. Get a card in Soul in order to get our Gem. So, I'm gonna say we're gonna keep the shield value. Prioritize that, but what do you guys think? So, I think I will maybe discard the Eureka here. We already have one in damage over here, but that's fine, and we'll ride. And I guess we could try and play ultra defensive here. So I guess let's put maybe the Elvira into Soul here in order to search our deck to get the Crossing Illumirays. I'm obviously not some sort of expert here, and I didn't start this video out claiming to be the #1 best Wilista player in the world, and I will teach you how to mulligan and how to do your turn 2 as perfect as possible. That was never the intention of this video, obviously, but just wanted to walk through it and show you guys my thought process, and maybe you guys can let me know yours down below in the comments. We're gonna go ahead and play it in order to draw 2. We are unfortunately going to get a Persona Ride here, which is a bit unfortunate. I don't think keeping the grade 1s would have helped us immensely, maybe the Elvira, but we're just gonna go ahead and swing in here to what I'm assuming is gonna be a no guard and hit another Crossing Illuminary. So we're actually in a pretty good spot here. To be honest, we can probably drop a bunch of shield. Maybe they only hit us with 2 attacks that turn. We can go ahead and draw 1. And we're looking kind of meh. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, if I were to ride and use the skill, we actually would have gotten double Elvira, Romania, and PG. So, as well as the heal trigger. So, could have actually ended up drawing a lot of cards, maybe turn things around with that. But, that'll do it for this video, which I hope was actually kind of quick. I don't know. I feel like I always try to record something quickly, but it always takes longer than it needs to. But I've always wanted to do some sort of style of video like this where I just focused on like one specific interaction or one specific part of the game for maybe a specific deck or not. And it's just something that always comes up in my head when this grade 2 turn comes. It's like, oh, what do I do? So hopefully that helps you guys, think through it. And also, even if you don't play Wilista, if maybe it'll show you the thought process of a Wilista player, so you can have a better grasp of what is in their hand and what is not in their hand at that point in time. But in any case, till next time, take care of yourselves and each other, play Vanguard, and have yourselves a damn good one.